Star Walker Studios presents Game Master's Journey, your multi-dimensional RPG podcast. Hello, fellow gamer. Welcome to episode 262 of Game Master's Journey. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker. On this show, we discuss the craft and the art of game mastering. I've been running RPGs for over 28 years now, and I produce this show in the hopes that you can benefit from my experience, my triumphs, and my mistakes. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I hope you've gotten some good gaming in this week. On today's episode, Brett is going to join me on the show again, and we're getting back to Chapter 8 of the Dungeon Master's Guide for D&D 5th Edition. Today, we're going to talk about combat, running combat in D&D, all kinds of great combat-related stuff, including how to track hit points and conditions, some variant rules, like, for instance, handling mobs, which is to say large numbers of monsters, whether those are monsters fighting the player characters or perhaps monsters fighting with the player characters. And then we'll talk a bit about chases, siege equipment, diseases, poisons, madness, XP, and stuff like that. And I think today that we'll get through the rest of Chapter 8, running the game, and finish our discussion of Chapter 8. But before we crack open the DMG today, I wanted to let you know that my latest self-published D&D supplement, Adventures of Primordia, has been released. It is available. This is a collection of player character options that I've come up with for my game. So if you've listened to or watched any of my Hinterlands of Elandria campaign actual play, you've seen some of these new rules in action. So included in this are 4 new cleric domains, 6 new backgrounds, some new mundane equipment, 4 new spells dealing with the planar rifts, and 28 new magic items from my home brew setting of Primordia. So thank you to everyone who's checked that out, and definitely encourage you to do so. Also, for a limited time on the store, I have a bundle of all 3 of my supplements all together in one purchase, and for a limited time it's on sale, and you can save 10% if you get the bundle. And that includes not only Adventures of Primordia, but also Relics of Power, which is a supplement in which I describe creating magic items that scale in power with the player characters wielding them, and also my adventure, The Trickster's Labyrinth. So you can get all 3 of those in the bundle and save 10% for a limited time. So again, thank you to everyone who's purchased my supplements. I really appreciate it. And people are always asking me how to help out the show, and the best ways are purchasing my supplements or becoming a patron of Star Walker Studios. So thank you to everyone for your support. All right, well, that's pretty much it for the announcements today. So without further ado, let's get Brett on board and let's start talking about combat in Dungeons and Dragons. All right, combat. Woohoo! This is the point in the game session where all the players wake up. Right. For combat. Now everybody's engaged.
Yeah, that's going back to the other. That's how you engage the players.
Yeah. Bring up account combat. That works pretty much every time.
It's interesting. The first thing they bring up is how to track initiative and the different ways to do it. I've seen the hidden list, of course. I've seen the visible list, which the hidden list doesn't make a lot of sense to me because time people are going to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's they're going to know who's going first or who's going next.
Yeah.
But the index cards, I hadn't tried this before.
That's actually how I do it.
Oh, really?
Well, at least I use index cards. I don't know if I'm doing it the way they say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. This is what I do. Yeah.
So there was I know Critical Role did a thing where they have a flagpole, and then they put their initiative on it like that.
So with the index cards, one way I've seen the guys from Wizards do it, if you're playing in person, is you can fold them in half and hang them on the top of your GM screen.
Okay.
So on the part that's facing the players, you can have like the character's name. And then on the part that's facing you, you can have like their armor class, their passive perception, whatever else you might need as far as
that makes sense.
Stuff.
Sure.
The way I do it, because I run for you guys online, is I still use index cards, but I just have them in a pile in my hand, like a deck of cards. And so I put them in initiative order, and then as everybody takes their turn, I just put the card on the bottom of the deck.
Okay.
I make index cards for all my monsters. So I photocopy the stat block from the monster manual and put it on an index card. So I can use those in the turn order. And then I have like all the stuff there. I don't have to flip pages in the monster book.
Right.
So slowly over time, I'm building, every time I need new monsters, I make them and then I save them for later.
Oh, cool.
So that's how I do that. And, the invisible or the hidden list. Yeah. The only benefit I see to that is as they say, when you have creatures that are going to participate in the battle that the players don't know about yet.
Right.
But like I do my index card thing, so those are in the deck anyway, and the players don't know that they're there.
Yeah.
So I guess the index thing is kind of hidden in a way. My big thing here, as far as a tip to give people, is and I forget to do this all the time, but try to remember when you announce someone's turn, tell the next player that they're on deck, so they can be thinking about what they're going to do. So that when you get to their turn, they're not like, oh crap, what do I do?
Right.
So hopefully they're like, oh, my turn's next. I should figure out what I'm going to do. Just to speed things up a little bit. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. I was going to mention when we were talking about the social stuff and like we were talking about engaging players and making sure everybody gets a turn, is sometimes in a social situation, you can use initiative. Especially if you have some players who are more boisterous and others that are more introverted. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have some way to make sure everybody gets a chance to do something, the more boisterous players will just take over. So sometimes I'll use initiative just to make sure everybody gets a chance to do or say something if they want to.
Right.
Just so I don't forget the quiet players, because they tend to get, especially online, they tend to get forgotten.
Yeah.
I feel like, when you're in person, you're a little more likely to realize, John hasn't said anything for half an hour. But when you're playing online, sometimes you're just dealing with whoever's talking and you're not thinking about the fact that some people haven't talked at all.
Right.
Tracking monster hit points. I mean, do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's yes.
You know what I think is more interesting here is tracking player character hit points. So the way I learned to run D&D back in the day, and the way I always did it until maybe 5th edition, I think, was I tracked everything. So I had a notebook in front of me and I had all the players written down, all their hit points, all their armor class. And anytime a player took damage, I was tracking their hit points.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't until 5th edition that I started letting the players do that.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a huge weight off my back not to have to do it. But the downside,
that seems heavy.
Yeah. But the downside is I found that like I tend not to know how many hit points player characters have. So I don't know if I'm about to kill them or not. Where when I did it all myself, I would know, Brett's character only has 2 hit points at this point, just in case that might change something I'm going to do.
Well,
but
if you want to play a game where you're not inclined to flub the rolls, then then that would help.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've never gone back to the old way, just because it's so much more workload.
Yeah.
and I've got enough to do the way it is without having to do everybody's hit points too. And yeah, the only downside I can see to letting the players do it is not knowing where they're at. And also, I guess the possibility of the players either cheating or making a mistake.
Yeah.
The making a mistake, I don't really care about. The cheating, I try not to play with people that cheat. So
right. Yep. You win those.
Yeah.
Get those out of the game.
So yeah, Brett, is that, I mean, you have players track their HP. How do you do it?
Oh yeah. I don't do it myself.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Why would somebody do that? Well, yeah. And I play with friends that I know and trust, and you know, we all are in it for the game. We enjoy the game, and we've all had bad rolls, and I think I can speak for everyone I've played with that it's not just the successes, but it's the fun of failing sometimes that adds to the story. So we wouldn't want to miss out on that, unless we do it too much and then we just get pissed and take a break. But yeah, I can't. I'm glad I don't do that. That would be way too much.
Yeah. Well, we're so much on the honor system in our game that you guys actually roll physical dice that I'd never even see.
Oh yeah.
We play online and we don't even use a dice roller for the most part. You guys just roll your own dice and you tell me what you rolled. And I mean, you could totally be cheating and I would never know other than if I might pick it up through, you know, body language or something like that. But I mean, I can't see your dice, so I don't know what's going on.
Except when I make everybody sick and I move the camera. That's funny.
But I do that because as a player, I much more enjoy rolling a physical die than
it's the sound.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know, I don't know. I just feel like if you're cheating, you really, it's the cliche, but you're really just cheating yourself. Yeah. Because you're going to have ultimately less fun, I think, because deep down, you know that you cheated and like, what does any of it mean if you're cheating? Right. It's meaningless. As soon as you start cheating, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And who wants to spend this much time doing something that doesn't mean anything?
Right. And plus you're playing a game that there's no real win. There's no, I guess you could say winning is like finishing the game or what have you, but there's no top score. There's there's no end winner or winner at the end that collects everything. So yeah, it's all part of the experience. It's not. Now I say this as somebody who doesn't like to cheat and all that. So I know there are players out there who min-max everything and metagame and all that, and they can play their own game.
And I could be naive here, but I feel like if you're playing with young children or even possibly teenagers who are new to the game, you might encounter some cheating. But I feel like if you're playing with adults and or anyone who's played the game for very long at all, right? I don't think you're going to run into it because people will understand that as soon as they cheat, it's no fun anymore for them. Right. And they'll have learned that because they cheated in the past and ruined the campaign for themselves. And they're like, wow, I'm not going to do that again. Like reading the adventure ahead of time. I mean, how shitty would it be to play an adventure that you've read cover to cover? I mean, why even show up? It'd be so boring.
And then try to pass it off as not knowing.
Yeah, it'd be like watching Endgame, knowing all the spoilers. Like, why even watch the movie at that point? You already know what happened.
Yep.
Other than
I'm in it for the special effects. That's all.
I just watched it to see Captain Marvel look amazing. As she does, you know. I mean, why else would you watch that movie? I'm trolling. I'm just trying to get emails.
Yep.
Any feedback is good feedback.
For the record, I've seen the movie 3 times now.
I've only seen it once.
Oh, it's such a good movie. Anyway.
It was a good movie. I'm on board for like 10 Captain Marvel movies. I'm just saying.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially if they're just like the first one as far as like the campy humor. Like it was so great.
Yep. Nope. Brie Larson was perfect for that.
Yeah. And I'd be totally cool with a movie where she's only helping planets other than Earth.
Yeah.
And I feel like they owe us that after the whole, well, I have other planets to help than just Earth, you know?
Yeah, there's a whole story there that they're not showing.
Yeah. My wife has been reading the comic books, and she said there's a lot of that in the comic books of her like helping other worlds and stuff. So I'm actually kind of wanting to read them. For the first time in my life, I'm seriously tempted to start reading comic books.
Considering comics. Wow.
I've tried them before. I just could never get into them, but maybe Captain Marvel. Because in fairness, when I tried to read comics before, I tried to read like Batman or Superman or Spider-Man.
Right.
So there are characters I already knew really well. So
yeah,
it might be more engaging reading about a character I know nothing about other than what was in that movie.
Yeah.
Which probably, I don't know how much of that is even true to the actual comic book character and how much was for the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know the characters are, well, yeah, I don't remember much of, and actually, to be fair, everything I know about Captain Marvel comes from from all the animated shows, all the cartoons.
Oh yeah.
No, that's it.
There are animated shows for her? I didn't know that.
Not for her, but she was in them.
Oh, okay.
They would have like not subplots, but they'd have like mini arcs that involved her. I think Avengers was one of them. I can't remember which version.
Okay, cool.
But one of the Disney Avengers cartoons, not long.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we?
That was a tangent.
Don't get me going on Captain Marvel. I'll never come back. She's so much better than Superman. I just got to say it. As someone who's loved Superman my entire life and has only recently discovered Captain Marvel, she's so much better than Superman or Supergirl.
Yep.
I'm on board. Let's do it. Come on, Marvel. 10 more movies. Bring them.
Tracking conditions.
Yeah, that's where we are. Conditions are a thing. You should track
conditions. Yes, absolutely. Now, is it better for the DM to track them, or better for players to track them as well, or both? Is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I think again, I keep coming back to this Essentials Kit that I really like. But one of the reasons this is better than the beginner box is it comes with condition cards.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So when if a player character is blinded or paralyzed or poisoned or whatever, you can just give them the condition card and it tells them all the mechanics. And then when they get rid of the condition, they just give it back to you. So,
that sounds so much better.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. So if you don't have those, just, make your own on index cards or whatever. And
yeah,
or I'm sure you can buy them. I'm sure they have a deck of condition cards you can buy. But yeah, that's how I think that's a great way to do it. But yeah. And then, you're going to have conditions on your monsters too.
Right.
So if you use like miniatures, if you have some way to signify on the miniature, like Critical Role, they'll put
like the little ring token things.
Yeah, like milk rings around it or whatever.
Right.
That works. Or if you're using like a digital tabletop, a lot of times they'll have little like icons you can put on them or whatever.
Right.
Because that gets tricky, especially when you're in a combat with a lot of NPCs and conditions all over the place, remembering who's got what condition. Unless you have some way to keep track of that, like you're not going to keep it straight.
No, there's no way.
And I definitely think as far as player characters, having the players be responsible for as much of that as they can. I feel like if your character is blinded, like that should be on you to remember that. And I shouldn't have to remind you every round that you're blinded and you have certain penalties or whatever.
True.
True. Like the player, unless you're a brand new player, then that's different. But if you know what you're doing, like you should be. And again, don't cheat and quote, forget about the fact that you're blinded.
Right. Although to be fair, conditions are one of the big things that it's easy to, because it's abnormal. It's not
right.
It's not part of the norm as you're playing. So So
If you
it's easy to lose
forget,
track of that.
It's okay, but don't accidentally on purpose forget.
Right.
Monsters and critical hits, they do happen.
They do.
So this is about what to do if you use the average damage. Do you ever use the average damage, Brett?
No, I always roll.
I don't either. I definitely see how it would speed things up, but it just seems too predictable.
Yeah, the idea of the orc hits you for 12 points every single time, that makes no sense to me. So it takes the fun out of it. So you could it takes the randomness out of it, to where they could get a solid hit but do little damage, or they could barely hit and do a lot of damage, or just that sort of thing always adds to the element. So I don't flub those, but average those.
If you do that, if you use those averages,
right? They're saying if
it criticals, you can just roll what you would normally roll for damage and add that to the average. So you don't like double the average. You're actually going to roll some dice at that point.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's simple enough. Improvising damage. So there are a couple really useful charts here on page 249. You can use these for spells. You can use these for attacks. You can use these for traps. Like anything that does damage, you can use these tables for.
1d10 of damage getting hit by a bookcase. There's your example.
Can you hear the ice cream truck, Brett?
Nope.
Good.
Oh, wait. I heard a chime. Nah, it's gone.
It's so loud. So this first table, improvising damage. Yeah, like Brett said, it gives you some random things and how much damage they would do.
Holy crap. Being crushed in the jaws of a godlike creature. That's 24d10.
Yes.
This is stuff you need to know.
Or a moon-sized monster.
A moon-sized monster.
Because that could happen.
That is awesome.
So I guess the table I was really talking about is the next one, damage, severity, and level.
Oh,
so this is the one you can use for traps and spells and things, where it gives a level, whether you want the damage to be a setback, dangerous, or deadly, and then amount of damage. So I use this for traps all the time. So let's say the characters are level 5 to 10. I want it to be a dangerous trap. Damage would be 4d10.
Right.
And you can change up the dice so not everything is the same. So 4d10, I mean, you could roll anything from a 4 to a 40. Mm-hmm. So you could do like 2d20 or I don't know,
3d8 kind of sort of.
Yeah. So you could use different dice to give you kind of the same ballpark if you want some more variety. Yeah. So that's a pretty handy table. I think that table's actually on the DM screen.
That should be.
I think it is.
That seems like something that would be good for on the fly stuff.
Yeah, totally. Also comes in useful if you have PCs creating their own spells.
Yeah.
We have another table for that later, but I think it's actually the same table. So or the same
cool.
Same numbers. So you can use either. Adjudicating areas of effect. So this gets pretty mathy.
Ew.
But if you want to, it gives you the various, like cone, cube, cylinder, line, sphere, and gives you kind of a math way you could figure out about how many targets that would hit. So for instance, a cone, you take the size of the cone and divide by 10 and round up, and that's how many it could hit. I've actually used these before for Theater of the Mind.
Oh yeah. That makes sense. So it's not a visible, not something you can visibly track. Yeah.
But what I actually find more useful than that is, do they have it in here where they show it like, graphically? Oh, they don't have it in here. It was actually a Pathfinder thing. But yeah, there's this Pathfinder thing online where it shows the different areas of effect on a grid.
Oh, okay.
Like what they would look like on the grid. And I just look at those and count how many squares like the cone covers or whatever. But either way works. Or just kind of hand wave it. So yeah, there's that.
Math. But
so that's one of the things that's actually a little easier if you use a grid, maybe, is the AoE stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. So next is handling mobs. So this is great stuff. This is great if you want to throw lots of little things at your player characters.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have some kind of summoner PC, like a druid who likes to summon like oodles of tiny little creatures.
Right.
So it lets you handle a bunch of similar monsters as one monster as far as making rolls.
Oh, yeah.
To speed up combat.
I heard there was another rule, but it might be an optional in Chapter 9. So
okay.
Talk about it yet. But
yeah, so let's see what this one is. Make sure we're talking about the right one.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this it?
I think so. So if the attacking creatures deal different amounts of damage. Oh, never mind. Yeah, instead of rolling an attack roll, determine the minimum 20 roll creature needs to hit a target by subtracting its attack bonus from the target's AC. You'll need to refer to the result throughout the battle, so it's best to write it down.
So then you look up that minimum roll on the mob attacks table, which is on page 250.
So, for example, the D20 roll needed. So if you had a 15, it would need 3 attackers needed for 1 to hit.
Yeah.
So the way if I'm interpreting it right, it means for every 3 attackers, there would be 1 hit against the PC, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So, okay, so they got an example. They say, let's say you have 8 orcs surrounding a fighter. The orcs have an attack bonus of +5, and the fighter's armor class is 19. So the orcs need to roll a 14 or higher to hit the fighter. So we then look at the table. We see 14 it is 3 attackers needed for 1 hit. So for every 3 orcs that attack the fighter, 1 of them hits. There are enough orcs for 2 groups of 3. The remaining 2 orcs fail to hit the fighter. So in that case, the fighter would get hit twice by orcs. And then if it's more complicated, like your creatures do different amounts of damage, assume that the creature that deals the most damage is the one that hits. If the creature that hits has multiple attacks with the same bonus, assume that it hits once with each of those attacks. If a creature's attacks have different attack bonuses, resolve each attack separately. And honestly, I think if you have a creature with multi-attack, they're not the best suited for this. Anyway.
No, not until you get into higher levels. But this would be, I would like to put this to the test in kind of a siege environment.
Yeah, so they point out this attack system ignores critical hits in favor of reducing the number of rolls. So that is a downside. So especially if you're talking like for instance, I've used this with a player playing a druid, summoning a bunch of stuff. It does kind of screw the player over a little bit because there's no chance of one of those creatures rolling a 20 and getting a critical.
Right.
So that's kind of the downside, but it does speed things up a lot. So, and honestly, I might be kind of a dick in this way, but if I have someone playing a druid, I really want to discourage them from summoning a bunch of little creatures. So the fact that this is tactically less optimal, I'm okay with that, actually.
Yeah, and it works out both ways. So whether you're taking on a mob, you're sending a mob out, it's the same on both sides, so it's balanced enough.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I would definitely, if you're going to use this for player characters, definitely use it for NPCs too when you can, so it's fair.
Right.
And now we get into a bunch of stuff with miniatures and tactical maps. And Brett, you don't. Well, no, we used miniatures in your campaign, didn't we?
Digitally, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Because I like maps.
Yeah.
But
we didn't use like flanking rules or
no,
like that, did we?
No, we never got into that. In fact, I think we only used flanking in cases where the characters themselves had, or the NPCs had the ability to flank.
Yeah.
We never use those rules for the PCs.
So they have optional rules here for flanking, for facing, which is to say in your square, which is the square that you're, or which direction are you facing? So is someone in front of you? Are they behind you? Are they to the side?
That feels a little old school to me.
Yeah.
Like the old games.
Yeah.
The old editions. Because in all of our games, even though we were on a grid map, we just assumed that in the 6 seconds of a round, you would be able to you'd be able to address, whatever direction you need within that 5 foot square.
Yeah. Adjudicating reaction timing. Oh, this is about like what happens in what order if you have things happening at the same time.
So, I see.
Yeah, it just says if a reaction has no timing specified or the timing is unclear, the reaction occurs after its trigger finishes, as in the ready action, which makes sense. You can't have an effect before the cause.
What?
Not in linear time, anyway. Then we have a bit on combining game effects, which basically in a nutshell, they're just saying you can't combine effects from the same thing. So if something has the same name, like a spell or a magic item, you can't wear 2 rings of protection at the same time.
Right.
You can't cast armor on yourself twice, stuff like that. Basically. And then chases. I think you had something to say about chases, didn't you?
I thought I did.
I don't think I've ever done a chase.
I've tried a chase once, and I realized after that I needed to come back and read about chases because it seemed like it would go on forever.
I don't honestly. I'm just going to take a position here and say I don't think there is a good way to do a chase in a tabletop RPG.
Yeah,
I just don't. I mean, this is a fine attempt, I suppose, but
yeah,
it's not going to be what you want it to be. It's not going to be like a chase in a James Bond movie or an Indiana Jones movie. It's not going to feel like that because it's a tabletop game.
Right. And the only thing that I didn't do in the chase that I ran was adding in complications, and I think that. Oh yeah, that's the way to make a difference in the chase.
Yeah, so on page 254, there's a whole table or 2 tables of different chase complications. So yeah, if you use nothing else, at least check that out because that'll help a lot. Probably.
Yeah. I'm trying to think too. I think they had it might have been a variant rule, just part of the chase itself, to where after a certain point you have to roll Constitution to keep the chase.
That makes sense. Well, and I think there might be a different chase system in maybe Xanathar's Guide.
Oh, okay.
I feel like one of those other books, they might have had a different system, but I could be wrong.
That makes sense.
I don't want to look it up.
No, we're not talking about that book right now.
No, we're not. So yeah, I mean, they have a whole system here. You can check that out, but it's pretty niche. And honestly, I feel like you could do just as well just kind of narrating the chase and maybe occasionally calling for some kind of a skill check to see how it's going. But I feel like you could do just as well just kind of doing it on the fly. Like just ask yourself, what would Matt Mercer do? And do it like that. I think you do just as well, if not better, than using like this system or any other system.
Yeah. And because this does get for a game that prides itself on being fairly simplistic, the chase rules are very detailed.
Yeah. But I would definitely check out these tables of complications, even if you don't.
Yeah, they have great ideas.
Yeah. Like things like if you're in a city, a beggar gets in your way.
Right.
I mean, that could be like a character moment. It's like, what do? Do you just trample the beggar? Do you shove him out of your way? Do you,
Yep.
This is where your alignment comes into play. How do you react? What are the 9 reactions to a beggar getting in your way during a chase?
Oh, geez.
Well, lawful good would. That'd actually be a fun exercise. What would the 9 different alignments do in this situation?
And justify your answer.
Yes. So mail those in, gamemastersjourney@gmail.com.
Right.
Winner will receive a golf clap. Next, we have siege equipment. I feel like just saying there's siege equipment in here. Check it out. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's got great details. It's got armor classes for each of the different types, hit points, what they do, how to use them. It's good stuff to have for siege combat.
Yeah. It's got all your classics, your trebuchet, your ballista.
Yeah.
Even a cannon. If you roll like that.
And a siege tower. Thank you very much. Which, by the way, in case you didn't know, was a gargantuan object.
That's what she said. All right. Next is diseases. So, yeah. People can get diseases. And we've got some sample ones. That's unless you're a paladin.
Yeah, that's right. Wall is immune.
Cackle fever, sewer plague, sight rot.
Cackle fever.
And these are
this doesn't seem to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say this doesn't seem to do it justice because there are only 3. You need a bigger sampling.
Well, I was just going to say it does though kind of give you an idea of like how they approach a disease.
True.
They've got various saving throws and DC. You've got your how long it like what you'd call your incubation period. How long between from when you're exposed to when you start seeing symptoms,
right?
What the effects of the disease are. It could do damage. It could reduce ability scores. So yeah, I mean, they only give you 3, which doesn't seem like nearly enough, but you can kind of look at this and come up with your own diseases and see kind of how they did it. So, and these are kind of like magical diseases. These aren't like flu or the cold. They're like pretty out there diseases.
Right.
Then we got poisons. And
always fun.
Yeah, we've got some sample poisons for you. And again, you could use this to come up with your own ideas. So poisons usually have some kind of a saving throw, and then they'll either do damage or have some kind of effect. They talk about buying poisons, crafting or harvesting poisons. So yeah, that can be pretty interesting for people that are into that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that player that wants to harvest poison from every poisonous monster they fight, this gives you some guidelines on that. It says the creature must be incapacitated or dead. Harvesting requires 1d6 minutes, followed by a DC 20 intelligence nature check. And you can apply proficiency with the Poisoner's Kit.
Nice.
And this is one where it says if you fail the check by 5 or more, you are subjected to the poison. So there's it's
built into it instead of the alternate.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's a great way to use that, failing really badly.
Right.
Next is madness.
I've never used this.
Yeah. This definitely isn't like the greatest madness system I've ever seen. You probably go to something like Call of Cthulhu if you really want a really good madness system, I'm sure. But they've got short-term madness and long-term madness and indefinite madness. And this does get referred to like certain spells or magic items or whatever will be like, you get a long-term madness or whatever. So, how to cure madness. Yeah. I don't know if there's really a whole lot to say about that. Go look it up.
Yeah. Was that 259, page 259, 256 or 260? Yeah.
And some of these, I don't know. These, I think these madnesses, they really live or die on role playing, on how well either you as a GM, if it's an NPC, or how well the player can role play. And honestly, if I was a GM and I had a player that was going to get like, say, a long-term madness, I might just let the player pick one, because I'd rather have the player pick one they feel like they can role play well then I give them one that they maybe can't role play so well, or they don't know what to do with it. So I'd rather they have something that they can really ham it up and play it to the hilt.
That makes sense. Yeah. Or give them a choice between 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you got things like the long-term madness. You've got like partial amnesia, obsessive compulsive behavior, hallucinations, usual stuff.
Loses the ability to speak.
That'd be kind of rough to deal with at the table.
That would suck.
Hope you all know sign language.
It's interesting that indefinite madness is all quotes. It's all things you would say.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't like the way people judge me all the time.
That's really madness? That seems pretty normal to me.
It's on a D1. Yeah, really. On a D100, 51 to 55. I don't like the way people judge me all the time. Maybe it's like a paranoia thing. I
like 96 to 100. I've discovered that I really like killing people. The ultimate murder hobo.
Yep. It's like, I can get with this. Yeah. Interesting.
All right. Next is experience points.
Yay.
We talked about this a little bit last time.
We did. Yeah. And talked about some of these different things, actually.
Yeah. Like, for instance, absent characters. Do they get XP? Do they not?
All right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Pros and cons to both sides.
Yeah.
Because you've got, if the player's gone and they don't get XP, then it hurts not just the player, but it hurts the party.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you might have players that you're playing with who think that the person who can't make it or doesn't make it or opts out too often doesn't deserve the XP.
Yeah, for sure.
So you got to read the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think every group's going to kind of have to come to their own conclusion there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to say, as my experience or as my perspective, I used to be very much like not award XP if you're not there. XP is a reward for not only showing up, but all the things you do and all the dangers you go through. And the character who isn't there, who didn't endure any of that danger, shouldn't get any. But in fairness, that philosophy came from when I was in like high school and college, and I would have players not come to the game because they decided to go on a date instead, or they had a raid in WoW instead, or they were
You were in high school when WoW was in?
Well, no, that was more college, but
okay.
They're too drunk or high to come to the game. They're too hungover from the night before to come to. So it was a lot of like lame ass excuses for why they weren't going to be there. Where to this, now in the future, in the present, if a player doesn't make it, it's usually because they have to work or they have some other, they have to take care of their kid, or it's not because they're being a jackass. It's because they have something else they have to do.
Right.
And also, like Brett was just saying, I mean, it kind of hurts everybody. So if everybody else is 9th level and your character's 5th level, I mean, you're a liability to the whole team, not just yourself, because everybody else is trying to keep you alive and they're wasting their healing spells on you. So you're kind of punishing the whole group for what.
Or worse, you're the healer. And you can't heal anybody.
Yeah, your healing spells suck. I hope that 1d8 really helped you out there, level 10 fighter.
Yeah. I've adopted the idea of everybody gets the same XP.
Yeah, and it just, especially with D&D, encounter design gets a little more hairy when everybody's different levels. And if you worry about that, if you actually crunch the numbers and try to figure out what's a fair encounter, it gets harder if everybody's different levels. So, I think me and Brett would recommend that you just give everybody XP or not even use XP.
Or not use it. Yeah, exactly. Use some of these other examples, like milestones.
Milestones, yeah. So yeah, this you just you set up like major and minor milestones and decide how much XP those are worth. And those are more like in story, like completing a quest or completing an objective in the story, and less like killing monsters. Yeah, so that works. Or level advancement without XP, what we often call hand waving, which I think is really where it's at these days. I used to be very against hand waving, but now I'm kind of like, and I blame Wizards. I think it's
really,
yeah. I think if they would have designed the game in such a way that I could hand out XP and players would level like they're supposed to, I probably would. But they'll level at a third of the pace or a quarter of the pace that, you know, the books say that they should if you actually use XP.
Right.
And it's just a lot more like crunching numbers, and, you know, it's doing a lot more stuff that's not really what we're here to do for the most part. So
right.
Yeah.
The two things they talk about in this last piece on page 261 are things that we talked about last time: the session-based advancement and the story-based advancement.
Yeah.
Where at the end of, you could either at the end of every session or every second or third session advance to the next level, and kind of spread those out as the players get bigger, higher and bigger and bigger, higher and higher in level
as your egos grow.
That's right. And then story-based advancement, when you let the story, it says here, when you let the story of the campaign drive advance. So you award levels when the adventures accomplish something significant, or significant goals in the campaign itself. So that makes sense too. It's like it's milestones without XP.
Yeah, it's like quests, basically.
Yeah.
Like completing quests. So yeah. And that's chapter 8. We did it, Brett. We got all the way through it.
Wow. Took a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure cool. This it is going to be, or was, a multi-part series. Yeah. So any final thoughts or something you want to talk more about that we kind of sped through, or?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, just a quick recap. Let's do a quick recap of what we just talked about. Really, it boils down to how you want to play the game, right?
Yeah.
And the kind of environment that you want to set for the table. The role playing and keeping the pace of the game. Not going too deep in hand waving checks, but not grinding through like check after check, having them roll for every level.
Yeah.
Those are my big takeaways. And advantage and disadvantage and inspiration.
Yes. Do them
always.
More.
Do them more.
Yeah. I think kind of my takeaway is, as GMs, we can get really wrapped up in things like XP and designing encounters, and we can get really caught up in things that ultimately the players don't care about and don't really matter. Like, true. They matter to us as GMs, but they don't matter to the players at all. And so I guess trying to know the difference between the things that are going to matter to the players versus the things that just matter to you. And if it's something that just matters to you, like whether you're going to use XP or milestones or whatever, just do what's the easiest.
Yeah.
Because the players don't care. So why make your job harder than it needs to be? So
Right. Yeah. Make sure the players don't care. And then, whatever is going to help you get through the story faster, without turning it into a slog, like I said last time, without bogging it down in numbers and, making it no fun.
Yeah.
Just keep the pace and have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we can get kind of caught up in what we're supposed to be doing as GMs. Like,
oh, well, the characters are traveling all the way across the continent. I'm supposed to do all kinds of random encounters, and I can't just hand wave that. I can't just montage that and get to the good part. I have to do all this crap none of us want to do because that's my job. And it's like, no, like, think like a director, like think about what's really important about this story. What can get cut? What can I cut away that will actually make the story better? And just focus on the highlights of, you don't need to worry about when the characters go to the bathroom or, this like trivial stuff. Just focus on the fun stuff and skip everything else.
Mm-hmm. And if you're talking about, especially if you're talking about long journeys and things like that, if you're trying to skip over the day-to-day grind and say you hit, a major encounter every so often, something that helps perpetuate the idea of it being risky out there, or it helps drive the story and helps build the characters up, and add the occasional XP if you're using XP. But then by the end of it, you're able to give like an exposition at the end where you can say you've been gone for several months. This is what's happened since you've been gone, or in that span of time, you guys have experienced this kind of change or what have you. So now you're back and things are different in this way.
Yeah,
that's always crazy.
Yeah, and think about like movies you've watched where there's like multiple movies in a series, or like novels where there's multiple novels. How many times in between books, like a bunch of time goes by, and you get a brief summary of kind of what's been happening, and then you're back into it. But it's like, well, 6 months of kind of boring stuff went by, and now we're back to the good stuff. And just focus on what's interesting, I guess. And maybe you're doing something like, maybe you're trying to run Under Mountain, and you're running your players through this like mega dungeon, and you're like looking at the book and you're like, oh my God, the next 3 levels of this dungeon suck. I do not want to do them. Skip them. Why not just say, hey, you guys fought and clawed through these 3 levels of the dungeon. I'll describe briefly what you encountered. And by the way, you gain a level. And I mean, that's pretty unorthodox, but better to do that and get to the thing you're excited to do than spend 3 months slogging through this dungeon no one wants to do. Absolutely.
Especially if it comes down to 1 encounter equals 1 long rest. Another encounter equals 1 long rest. So you wind up taking forever to get through it, which can actually come out in the story too. If you kind of plan for that, the beginning of this is so arduous that after you can narrate after the first few encounters, you would have an encounter and you would have to recuperate from it. Just find a hiding spot and settle in.
I may have to learn this lesson with my campaign. Just be like, you know what, we're just going to skip ahead to the good part. But honestly, I think it's not so much that there's nothing for you guys to do, is I just don't want to go off book. And I think I'm just going to have to just go off book and be like, hey guys, what are we doing? I have no clue. Where are we going? You guys have a ship. You can literally go anywhere. What are we doing? In fact, that's probably what I'll do, because I've been racking my brain for what to do with you guys for the next like 5 levels, and I haven't come up with anything great beyond what I think you guys are going to do anyway.
Well, Phoebe and Craig's character were talking about, they were trying to learn more information about about her race. About Bryn's race. So that's a little plot hook.
Yep. Yeah. Lots of plot hooks out there.
Oh, yeah. Good times.
Well, we did it. We got through chapter 8. Took us a few episodes to get through it all, but we did it. Huge thank you to Brett for coming on here and discussing the DMG with me. Thank you all for listening. We are going to continue on to Chapter 9. I know Brett and I are both really excited to talk about Chapter 9. It's a lot of variant rules, different options for different ways to run the game, different ways to handle things like healing and resting and various combat possibilities and all kinds of stuff. Also has guidance on creating or modifying your own monsters, creating your own spells and magic items and backgrounds and all kinds of stuff. So that's a part of the game I really enjoy. I really enjoy coming up with custom homebrewed content for my setting and for my players. So if you're like me and you really like that aspect of being a GM, there's a lot of great stuff for you in Chapter 9 of the DMG. So we'll be talking about that in the near future. I'm sure just like Chapter 8, it will take multiple episodes to get through Chapter 9, maybe even more than Chapter 8, because I feel like they're about the same length, I think, but I feel like there's going to be a lot more to discuss in Chapter 9. And who knows, maybe Brett and I will have some different opinions on some of these variant roles. So far, I think for the most part, we've agreed on everything, which I don't know, might be more interesting if we didn't agree on everything. But in Chapter 9, there are so many different options that I think there's a good chance there'll be at least something that we have different opinions on, and we can present a couple different viewpoints on why we might or might not use some of these different variants, different ways of running the game. So I'm really looking forward to that. However, next week, I'm going to be talking about the new D&D Essentials Kit. So I've mentioned this on the show before. This just recently came out as of time of recording this. And this is basically, in my mind, I'm not sure if Wizards is marketing it this way, but in my mind, it is a replacement for the starter set, which was is the box set for D&D 5th edition for new players and or GMs to kind of get everything you need to get started in the game in one little package. Definitely kind of a downside, I think, of this hobby when it comes to bringing in new people is, most games you go to a store and you buy the game and that's it. You're done. It's a no-brainer. It's easy to buy for someone else for their birthday or whatever. But with RPGs, it's a little different because there's not just one thing to buy. There's all these different books. And especially if you are new to the hobby or if you're buying a gift for someone and you yourself aren't a gamer, you may be totally lost as for which book or books you should get. So the starter set and other products like that for other games are a great solution to that because you have just one thing you can buy and it's got the basics to get you started, give you a kind of a peek into the hobby and see if this is something that you want to pursue and if it's something you're going to enjoy and maybe want to invest more into without having to, for instance, with D&D, having to shell out money to get 3 hardcover books. For, I think, slightly less than the cost of one of those books, you can get one of these boxes and at least get started. So the starter set has gone over very well and I think was a really good product, but I do feel like the Essentials Kit is a replacement of it because it's basically the same thing. It serves the same purpose. It's an intro to the game, but I think it does so in a better way and is a better product than the starter set is or was. So I will be talking about that next week, giving my review of the Essentials Kit and letting you know why I think it's hands down a better thing to get than the starter set. And now I'm thinking that in preparation for that, I should look and see if Wizards is still selling the starter set, because considering how it is in seemingly all measurable ways an improvement on the starter set, I could see the Essentials Kit replacing it, and maybe they're not going to be releasing the starter set anymore. But I'll try to find that out for next week, so I can know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. So yeah, so that's kind of what's coming up for the next few episodes. And again, thanks to Brett for joining me to discuss the DMG. Really appreciate it. And I know I've already heard from quite a few of you who like having Brett on the show. So yeah, great having you on, man. I hope you keep coming back. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up for episode 262. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can shoot me an email at gamemastersjourney@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @LexStarWalker, and you can call our voicemail 951-GMJ-LEX1. That's 951-465-5391. I'd love to hear from you. If you got a question, comment, feedback, suggestion for future topics, anything like that, I'd love to hear from you. You can also join myself and the other listener GMs on our community on MeWe and Discord. So you probably know what Discord is. MeWe is a Facebook and Google Plus alternative. And I really dig it. That I will say there's not a ton of people on MeWe, it seems like. But, now that Google Plus is gone and people continue to leave Facebook in droves, you got to have somewhere to go. So maybe MeWe will take off. But yeah, join us there and or on the Discord server. It's a great place if you have questions, you want to get some feedback from other GMs on something you're homebrewing or your adventure idea, or what happened in your last session that you have a question about, or if you just want to share cool things from your games. We always love hearing about other people's games and the cool things that have happened in their games. And so if you're looking for a place to share those things with a friendly audience who is interested to hear about it, check out our communities on MeWe and Discord. And finally, again, if you'd like to help support the show, best ways to do so are to purchase my D&D supplements and or become a patron. However, there are other options as well, few of which don't even cost you any money. And you can find all those at starwalkerstudios.com/support, or just follow the support link at the bottom of the show notes. So I hope that you have a chance to play your favorite RPG this week. I hope you have a chance to run your favorite RPG. I'll be back soon with another episode of Game Master's Journey. Until then, game on.
This has been a Starwalker Studios production, your source for quality gaming and hobby podcasts.
This episode's music, courtesy of Cloudwalker, Transboy, Renfield, Stanko, and Ish. See the show notes for more details at starwalkerstudios.com/GameMastersJourney.